All right. It is 6:47. This is a duly called regular council meeting of the town of Anthony, Texas, posted in accordance with section 551.002 and 551.041 of the Open Meetings Act of the Texas Government Code. Public participation during the portion of the agenda for public comment is limited to that portion only, except that if a citizen's comments related to a topic on subject covered under any agenda item, the citizen shall wait to speak until the meeting or till the agenda item comes up for discussion, and at all other times during the council meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the presiding officer. Go ahead, and Ms. Norma, can we do a quorum check?
Yes, sir. Councilman Garcia?
Here.
Councilman Alfaro?
Here.
Councilman Chavez?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Weeks?
Here.
And Mayor Romero. We have a quorum.
All right. Open forum for the public, limited to 2 minutes. Ms. Norma, did you get anybody that contacted you about speaking in open forum?
No, sir. Nobody has contacted me.
Let the record reflect we had nobody contact or message our town clerk to speak in open forum. Discussion or a matter of fact, item 5, review and action on the minutes of regular council meeting June 10, 2019. Any questions or comments from council, or do I get a motion?
I'd like to amend it because on number 7, when it was talking about the expenses to TxDOT, the 78,000, I'd like it to be reviewed again because I think we had a lengthy discussion about how these were all unapproved expenses by past administration, but I didn't see any notes of that in the minutes, and I wanted to reflect that to show why we actually had to spend this money.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, did you get that?
Yes, sir.
So
do I have a motion to
I'll move to
table the minutes until the
yeah, I'll move to postpone these minutes to the next meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion made by Mr. Weeks? Do I have a matter of fact, what we'll do is I'll ask for anybody that is voting against, that way to move thoroughly a little bit. If anybody doesn't want to vote against, then we would assume everybody's voting for, okay? Do I have anybody opposed to the item? Okay. Everybody approves. Do I have a second by Mr. Weeks? I have a motion made by Mr. Weeks. Do I have a second? Okay, Mr. Chavez. All right, any opposed? Motion carries.
It was second by Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6, review and action on minutes of regular council meeting August 12, 2019. Any questions or comment from council? Do I have a motion on the table?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Get a second.
Who was that?
That was me.
Mr. Alfaro. Thank you, sir. Motion made by Mr. Chavez, seconded by Councilman Alfaro. Are there any opposed to the item? All right. Motion carries. Moving on to item 7, discussion and action on the following new business. Item 1, discussion, consideration, and action on 911 district budget for fiscal year 2021, presented by Chief Enriquez.
So as you all know, every year we do a budget presentation for the 911 district. 911 district has to present their budget to all the municipalities, and they have to get it passed. Whether it's passed or not, it automatically defaults after 61 days, and it automatically goes into their records as if there's no objection, it gets approved. But I sent over with the CAF the supporting documentation as far as their budget goes. Do you guys have any questions? The 911 district have assisted us immensely in the past, and even here recently, they helped us out by purchasing 4 mobile radios for our police units, which total to about, if I'm not mistaken, close to 30,000, correct, Mayor?
Correct.
So they do assist us whenever we need the assistance. The year prior, they did help us upfit a entire vehicle, and then they helped us with computers as well. So the new executive director, Scott Calderwood, is asking for you all to have looked at his proposed budget that has already gone to his board and is asking for your approval.
Any questions from council?
Chief, their board's already approved this budget. They're just sending it to all the municipalities, correct?
That's correct, sir. All the municipalities in El Paso County have to either approve or deny their budget.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Weeks, seconded by Councilman Garcia to approve the 911 district budget for fiscal year 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Mayor
Moving
Council.
on to item 2, discussion, consideration, and action on recouping expenses for extension of water services to Sykes Road on Madrid property. This, guys, we wanted to put this on the Chief, is that you? Oh, okay. Putting on this on the agenda because, as you guys know, a couple years ago, there was ideally unapproved expenses that were utilized, or funds that were utilized for the town to extend water service to the Sykes residents. And at the time, it was Councilman Garcia and former Mayor Lerma that had presented the item. After the fact, or the discussion was, for potential well sites and whatnot in exchange for that. I recently had reached out to Mr. Madrid because, as you know, with the Furlet property, we were extending and doing work on extending the water line there. And in doing so, we secured and were able, in exchange for services, to secure a future well site for the town. We had all that ironed out and done, proper paperwork and documentation done before the fact of any work being done. And we were able to secure a new well site for the town. At the time, from my recollection, because I was Mayor Pro Tem at the time, is there was discussion of that to take place, but nothing was ever put in on paper. And then the actual expense on the funds, or the expenditure of the funds, was done without council approval. So looking at our ordinance, if I'm not sure if Henry's made it on the line or not, but basically we have an ordinance that states when an individual is within a certain distance of tying into the services, that they are responsible for that amount, or paying for the installation of that amount. And on record, we only have them paying for the tap. So I kind of just wanted to bring this up as an agenda item for discussion, and also, for transparency purposes, to either make a finalized decision on what we're going to do with that, if we're recouping the cost as stated by ordinance, or what. So I kind of leave the floor open to council to see if there's any talking points, any discussion, anything to be had.
Was this the one where they were supposed to give us some land or an easement or something? Or is this different?
Correct. It's the one where we were supposed to, ideally, from what we understood at the time, or what I understood at the time, was going to be extending the service in exchange for a well site on their property.
That was when Mayor Lerma called me about the meeting with David Madrid. We met there at his house and we saw the situation that he was in. He was having to buy water, bulk water from the district, and he had a 2,000-gallon tank that he services or got water every 2 to 3 weeks. and would take it down to his farm. And then he put it into a system that he had built to add pressure for his house. And Mr. Madrid and the Madrid family have been asking for the services for many years, and we've always been telling them that we're waiting for a grant. Yet we got a grant for the things that cost us almost $280,000, and they never got anything. And then we spent at the time, también under the past administration, not yours, Mayor, we spent about $400,000 on a property that wasn't even worth the amount of money that we paid out. And now we're here worried about $10,000 that we brought water to this individual or this family that was in need of water. I justify it.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but my question is, did we have an understanding with them that they were supposed to give us an easement or something for a well?
There was Mayor Lerma's deal on it. After that, when I went out there and I observed the situation, I agreed with the project going ahead. As far as the contract work and all that, I mean, that should have been up to Mayor Lerma. He was the administrator at the time.
And you see, guys, this is kind of, why I wanted to bring this up, because there were a few items key items or instances that were mentioned here that town funds were utilized and paid for services that, either benefited one person in particular. And ideally that is a misuse of the funds. For one, it wasn't a budgeted line item or expense that we had. And then two, the extension of the water service and the funds that were used to utilize it were only to benefit one individual. Now, I won't be here to say what was done for a piece of property years ago or extension of line to another individual. But what I'm asking for clarification is for things that I'm dealing with on my table as of now. And part of me being here, chief administrator here, is we want accountability, but also fair and fair treatment for everybody all the way across the board. And we're extending the service to the Furlet property. But like I said, part of the problem here is in the past administration or whatnot, which is something, that I guess some individuals have an issue with me not doing. But, we're not here to utilize town funds to benefit people we know or certain individuals. The overall funds and the expenses should be utilized to benefit and better the community as a whole. This happened when I was first in council, when previous administration was wanting to utilize funds to fix a private road that was not owned for the town. So I went out and petitioned for signatures, to vote against that measure and not allow the funds to be utilized. And that was something that we were actually having, with Mr. Baca, which is kind of spurred why, we feel all the issues with the Rio Grande Gazette, even personally attacking me, in the fact that they were trying to utilize and come up with plans so the town can utilize its funds and either take over property at their expense or at our expense for their personal benefit. And this is one of those instances where, here we go, coming across that situation where something was done to someone's personal benefit. And according to our ordinance, as it states, basically anybody that is accessible within 100 feet to a lot of property shall make an approved water sewer connection at his or her own expense with his or her or their or its housing, building, or other place of human habitation. So there you go, unapproved, individuals that move forward with setting up line at the town's expense to benefit one individual. And what I'm calling to bring on the table is either to set up the accountability and let the Madrids be responsible for paying for the service that was extended to their household, or we get back on the boat and talk for what was presented to council after it was done, that the reason it was done to justify the expense was that we were getting land in exchange for a future well site. Because at that point, then the expense becomes justified because we're getting something that is going to be of an overall benefit to the entire town as a whole. Then it justifies the expenses. And what we'll state is, once again, take example, the Furlet Road And, the Brickleback property is we're extending the service line out to his property, but in exchange for that, we secured a well site for the town. And through previous council meetings, we showed and provided documentation that we were at a benefit not only in the overall land value that we accrued, but we're securing a future well site for the town, which justified the minor expenses for us handling the acquisition of the easements, the documentation, the surveys, and also the cost of extending the line. So that's why I brought this up to council to see through our ordinance, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to get with Mr. Madrid and see if we can secure the well site, or do we just make him responsible and pay for the line?
Ben and council. So I don't think that this is a question really of what we did 4 years ago or what happened 4 years ago and was the line given to him right or wrong. I think this is more of a question of integrity, where we had something, and it doesn't have anything to do with us as individual council, but we had an understanding at a meeting. I remember I had an agenda item, and we had an understanding that, and they agreed that they were going to give us an easement or land. I don't remember the particulars. I'd have to go hear it, that they did this. Now, so what we're saying is, though, that our administration at the time, past Mayor Lerma, dropped the ball and didn't put the paperwork in order. So basically, we gave something to somebody of value, and we got nothing in return. When you do things like this with the promise, I understand what you said, Mr. Garcia, about how the Sings took advantage of a grant, or how we've spent money on property stupidly before we were all on council. I get it. I understand that, and that this is small potatoes, compared to that. But, let me ask you this. Did this family, when they had a well, pay a water bill? Until their well went bad, did they pay a water bill or do anything to benefit the town of Anthony water department? No, they didn't have to. And so when somebody builds a house out in the country and they need water, or electricity or whatever, they have to figure it out at their expense. It just happened backwards, like we're always dealing with. Is somebody had a good well, everything was fine, their water went bad, and then they tried to make it our problem. Then they got to the heartstrings. We worked out a deal with them, and then they pulled the deal out from under us. So I guess really what we're saying is do we take this family to court, or what do we do in essence? Because we basically gave them $10,000. And I guess this angers me because recently, in the last 6 months, minor mistakes were made, and I didn't do them, but employees and other people were questioning my integrity, and I had nothing to do with anything. And now we got these people that basically lied, and we're just going to let them get away with it because we're nice guys. And I guess that's what the question is. Are we just going to let this family get away with what they did?
And my thing on putting this for the council is not that we're going to look to get them away, because that's the entire reason why I'm on here. According to our ordinance, ladies and gentlemen, they're responsible for paying. So the reason why this is on here is, do we go the legal route, or, do we just assess them the bill for the $10,000 or whatever expense it was to extend the water line out to their property, and they pay it off? Now, I understand everything with COVID or whatnot, but, I want to put things on paper and get documentation on how we're going to handle this and what's going to be the road to go with, or the direction we're going to take. That way, we establish the accountability, because I feel it's unfair that individuals, push or utilize, town funds at the time, whether they were in office, to move forward with extending and not follow the proper protocols and procedures. And that is it for me.
Ben,
and that's why this is on here.
Ben, I think we should go for the land to secure the property in case we need it in the future for another well or for something else. So I think we should just go after him for the property.
I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Chavez. I actually tried to contact Mr. Madrid to say, hey, you know what? from our understanding, this was the discussion.
Right,
You know,
right.
we have our engineers that drafted up a contract and agreement. You know, let's go ahead and finalize the paperwork. And Mr. Madrid says, sorry, SOL, I never agreed to giving land or anything.
But it should be in the meetings, right? It should be in the minutes. Because he was there. I remember he was there when we spoke about it.
Yeah. And that
So
and that's
it-
something that we're still researching and looking at. From what Norma found, she found an excerpt, and the only thing that was on the agenda, I don't know if this was something that was mentioned under administration or whatnot, but Mr. Weeks did put it as an agenda item on what date, Norma? If you're there, she had the date of when Sean put it on the agenda.
It was
being
like 4
approved.
years ago.
Yeah, for being
it was
approved without council approval.
And it ended up being a discussion item because Martin said that he was going to get that resolved and get the land before they move forward and finish the project.
Yes, sir. The date on the meeting that it was discussed in regards to concerns on the way the procedure was done, it was July 25th, 2016.
Also about exactly almost exactly 4 years ago.
So for us here, you know, looking at it and seeing that there was that amount that was expended, you know, I'm just trying to look here and see where we justify it. You know, in my honest opinion, if he's not willing to move forward with his part of the agreement, and that's why I'm so against these gentlemen agreements that were done back, you know, within past administrations, because you never knew what the details were. And I'm for one in making sure everything's on paper. And when I followed up with the individual to make sure we got it on paper, he completely flat out said that he never agreed to anything. So now, you know, the only thing that we have is pretty much on the ordinance. It states it on the ordinance that anybody that's extending more than 100 feet or so, it has to be done at their expense, because we're not in the business to utilize town funds to benefit only private individuals or one person individual. If the 10,000 was spent and we were servicing to set up, you know, 10 homes in the area and get the water meters and lines installed, then it justifies it. But the reason it hasn't or hadn't been done so before is because those individuals lived in an agricultural area, and it was their decision to live on that piece of property and focus on utilizing a well for their water needs, well out of the reach of the town's infrastructure for water. So I just, you know, I wish Henry were on the line. He's not on the line yet, Norma?
No, sir. No, sir. He's
To
unable
kind of state it out for pretty much put it flat out, what the ordinance states. But if you guys like, or if you don't want to take any action right now,
Well,
you know,
I'm ready to make a motion, but I just want to make sure none of the rest of the council had anything else to say.
On the
Council?
packet, I attached the ordinance that Mr. Henry Palomares provided to us, and is sewer water connection required, and it's 1304040.
Yeah, I would say is let Henry decide what recourse we have in regards to how we can proceed with this particular item. Maybe get our money back, or somehow, if he doesn't want to, like you were saying, man, if he doesn't want to work with the town, then what? We don't have much of a choice here.
and it's fine if he doesn't want to work with the town, it's fine. But the ordinance states he's responsible financially for that extension for that service that was extended to him. So, I mean, I'd rather just go with what the ordinance states, you know.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't want to negotiate with the town, then yeah, we should just do what we got to do. We don't have much of a choice.
I think too that that Henry should reach out to past Mayor Lerma to get something on the record of what was said, because it was my understanding too that Mr. Madrid originally said yes to this proposal, but then came back later on and said his mom said no or something like that, or somebody else said no. And then, you know, but I know for a fact that we can document that they never paid for that line. So they you know, we got to kind of be finesse about it, but I'd say we also get past Mayor Lerma on the record to see what he recalls and what he did. Bottom line is, guys, I'm kind of tired of backtracking on all this stuff and paying these bills because somebody didn't do their job for 4 years.
And let's make it clear for the record, like I said, this wasn't anything to do even with myself right now as the mayor. I'm just looking to tie up all the loose ends and clean this stuff up, because as you guys know, the accountability and everything, we don't drop the ball here. Everything's getting handled and everybody's held to the same standard here. And, we make sure that anything that's being done is done correctly, and that we get all the documentation and paperwork done before any work gets done. Because this is exactly why, I wanted to put it on the record and state that, this was done, without council approval at the time. And these were the things that had happened in the past, and why we work hard. And, maybe people might be against us here in the community, but it's because we're establishing that standard, and, everything has to be documented. And we're not here to utilize town funds to be benefiting friends, certain individuals or groups. We're here to work in the best interest of the entire community. So any motion, Mr. Weeks, or what did you guys want to go ahead and do?
I make a motion that we meet with Henry and try to set up a meeting with Henry, and maybe perhaps also Mr. Madrid, and
Correct.
do some kind of meeting with past Mayor Lerma too, to get things on the record and get things out there.
Yeah. And I'll look to set that up. I'll set up an individual meeting with these guys, see what we're talking about, and we'll probably put this back on the agenda, and we'll have Mr. Madrid present, and we'll go from there.
We need somebody to second the motion.
All right.
Second.
All right. I have a second made by Mr. Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Like I said, I just want to put that on the record so we can, get a definitive answer on what route we're going to take with that. Moving on to item 3, discussion, consideration, and action on a resolution amending the budget for fiscal year October 1st, 2019 to September 30th, 2020 to add budget line items for CARES Act funding related to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you guys know, we actually got a check for about $58,000 from the CARES Act in reimbursement to the town. But what I wanted to go ahead and do is, for transparency purposes, is ask council if they would approve and allow to support the resolution, creating a specific line item so this money can be deposited. And then also, for transparency purposes, a line item that shows the expense on our budget so we can track how this money was spent. Most, cities are putting it into their general fund. I wanted to kind of take it a step further just so we can show documentation for public purposes on how this money will utilize and how much money the town got. And the only way we can do that is ideally by creating a line item, which I need to come to council for approval. Any questions, comments? The floor is open to council.
David, would it be better to have a line item on our existing budget or to have its own budget? Can't hear you, David.
I believe we should have a different line item, so for transparency purposes, that way we can track the money. We got 58,000, and this month is going out, 10,000, and we have a balance of 38,000 left. So that way we can track it.
And also, have you guys done any checking to see, because I know that it's very specific what this money can be spent on or what we can be reimbursed for? Have you guys got the items that it can be spent on?
We're putting some stuff together on that, guys, and the reason why we wanted to put it into this line item is so it just doesn't, go into the general fund and ideally disappear. We want to make sure we have this money set aside. That way, when we're looking at the expenses, we're actually going to come back to council with a budget proposal, in a sense, to just, for transparency purposes, get approval on all the items being submitted for the reimbursement and basically go from there. there are a lot of ideas floating around, but that's something that we're addressing and looking at with legal, because there are some instances where El Paso is utilizing some of that money to give out, disbursements to families, that didn't receive a stimulus check. Some were going to water bills. Ideally, my original thought was just applying it all the way across the board, to each resident's water bills and give them a credit. That way it's, dispersed evenly and equally throughout the community for the community benefit. But, those are some of the things that we're still trying to finalize and iron out, with the county legal department, and then our own as well.
Yeah, just to clarify, everyone, I think that's important because if it's like the PPP loans and those other loans that the businesses got, if the money's not justifiable expense, then it's almost like a loan that we would have to pay back. So we want to cross our T's and dot our I's. So yeah, I'll make the motion to do a separate line item for the CARES Act funding related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, I have a second made by Mr. Alfaro. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys.
I need a
Moving
roll.
on to, yep.
I have Mayor Pro Tem Weeks,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia, Councilman Chavez,
Yes.
and Councilman Alfaro.
Yes.
We good, Norma?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, we're ready.
All right. Moving on to item 4, discussion, consideration, and action on third financial budget quarterly report. Go ahead. Sean, did you want to say anything?
No, I'll leave this to David.
Okay. Go ahead, David.
Okay. Well, you have the two budgets from the water department and general fund with you. And what I could say about in reference to the income, you can see the percentages coming in, so it's over. Some of the line items are over the what was budgeted for the income, so that's good. If you go to the second page and all the way to the fourth page, that's the on the general fund, you have the expenses. One of the line items that it's over budget, it's audits and fees, 6510, page 2. And the reason it's over, it's because we're doing 2 fiscal year budgets.
We didn't
17-18.
previously utilize one, right, David?
17-18 and 18-19. 17-18, nothing was drawn from that expense account. If you go to page 3, you'll see on dues and subscriptions, it's a little bit over, but I believe it was to my personal view, this line item was under budget. They didn't take consideration of the subscriptions that are like on a monthly basis. I don't think that was done accurately, so that's why I consider it a little bit over budget. On page 4, 70-90, that one is also a little bit over, but that's when the trip that was done in September for the TML, when all the council people went to, was it Austin?
San Antonio.
San Antonio. So this expense was done in September, but in reality, it didn't get billed to October. So that's why it's a little bit over. And then the next line item that is over, it's 7190, that's uniforms. And also on this one, I do believe that was a little bit under budget. I'm taking notes for the next fiscal budget, you know, that we should have the correct amounts for the under budget expenses.
David, can you
Overall,
also, David, can
Go
you
for it.
check line item 4900 AISD reimbursement on the first page? It looks
Okay.
like it appears like they paid double, and I bet that that's not correct. I don't think that they
No, it's not double. The what's going on, it's because whoever set up these chart of accounts, they included all the grants, police grants in here. So they're all lump sum in the 4900s.
okay.
That's what happened.
Okay.
and those are some of the items that are still being cleaned up. As you guys know, we've been having a pretty tough time with the audit, and the auditors have been having a tough time because when we had, the former town clerk, and under the previous chief administrator, that budget got really screwed. A lot of the stuff that was inputted was done incorrectly, and we didn't get full notification and then understand all of that until pretty much, we were the ones able to establish some of the accountability with the staff, but it was already too late at that point. So some of the things that we've been looking at, and we just had a meeting earlier about about some of the budget line items, is we're creating a new chart of accounts for this next fiscal year, and with the auditor's recommendation, we're pretty much just starting over, building up a whole new budget and going from there. These guys are doing really good now, and since then, with the documentation and everything that's going into the budgets, but it's just still a lot of stuff that was left when we transferred from QuickBooks Desktop to the online that got screwed up in transition, and they're doing the best that they can to clean all that up. Any other questions, Mr. Weeks?
Not on the general fund, no.
All right. Any comments from council? Anything else? Overall, David, with what you're seeing on the budgets and the quarterly budget reviews, I know we'll be getting together probably this coming Friday to look a little bit more in depth of some of the items that we were discussing today in the afternoon. But how's the overall health of the budget that you see?
Well, the way I see it, it's in this paper, it looks good, but we need to clean up. I need to clean up. Well, clean up QuickBooks in order to have it more accurate. So when we get audited, whatever is here, it's also in QuickBooks.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions? Any comments from council?
Are we going to go over water, sewer too, or just the general fund?
Yeah, the water, sewer. The way I see it, it's also on the page 1. You see that the deposits of the revenue is over 100. That's real good. If we go to the expense, page 2. I'm looking at the percentages. If you can see that there's nothing over 100%, so we're doing good there with the water department. Page 3 looks also good all the way to 7,300, which was the contingency, and that was some big expenses we did back in December 2019 for the cubic water. It was 46,000 that we paid, so that's why it looks over that line item. But overall, it looks good to me.
Okay. Any questions from council? Any comments? All right, we'll go ahead and wrap up with the quarterly budget report. Moving on to departmental reports for streets. We did get an email. Ebert, is he on the line?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
I got questions about Magnolia. I guess there was a speed bump put right in front of the driveway of a household. Is that correct? Or I
It's
know
not
we've been trying to set them up in between driveways, or at least curb to curb. Was one installed in front of a driveway by any chance?
okay, Mayor. This is actually not Magnolia. It's Magdalena, and it's
Magdalena?
yes, sir. It's Magdalena. It's on one of the properties, and I believe they for you the picture. It's on the side of the driveway, but it's actually one of the permanent speed bumps, and that was built before they built the house there. I went
Oh,
back. That's why.
oh,
It's but
okay, okay.
it's one of the
So,
permanents they did when they barely paved the street. So I was just waiting
so
for you to
basically,
see.
that speed bump was there first. His
Yes, sir.
grandfather.
Grandfather in. Yes, sir.
All right, I know, and you know what? I know the reason why we went with the movable and
That's
the
what
rubber speed bumps is because the installation of those concrete ones or the asphalt ones were super expensive. Like what, $10,000 plus the
Yes,
speed
sir.
bump?
Just about.
Yeah. So ideally, those serve the purpose there because it is within the school zone kind of area and the way the
Mhm.
traffic flow is. So I don't think that one's going to move. And if it was done before the house was even built and we're having an issue with it now, um, honestly, I think that's just something, they're going to have to deal with.
Okay, man.
Other than that, we've been following up with the FM 1905 project. We have some stuff here in town. Sidewalks and all that are getting done. As you guys know, a lot of the owners that were on Popular Street between 4th and 6th Street, we really appreciate their quick response to the notices that we sent out. But we did have a lot of individuals that were encroaching on our right-of-way and on our property. And something that we want to let other residents know in the town of Anthony that, that's something that you are all going to have to take a look into now because of the fact that the town is being more proactive with road construction and sidewalks. If your property is encroaching on our right of way, you will be asked to move that. So we had some incidents where we had one individual on an alleyway that was given more than a year's time notice to be able to handle that, and are only trying to look at it as of now. And unfortunately, we're down to the wire where, either they have to move it and do that expense now, or we're going to end up, going in there and knocking it down. So that's something that we want to make sure all residents here in town are aware of, that if you're encroaching on our town property or on the utility easements or right-of-way access, you guys will be asked to move. So, take a look at that now. And if you need to reach out to the town, we can engage in some discussions and look at some of the issues, see how we can best resolve it. But we want to give everybody lengthy time to be able to move their properties back onto their property lines before you're ending up in a time crunch. But I really want to thank the households there. They were really good sports about it. They moved their fences. It was something that was easy. But once we get that sidewalk in between 4th, it's definitely going to change the overall look of the street because now we're going to have sidewalk all the way through that area. So it's going to be a good benefit and a good safety for the school and for the individuals once, hopefully when they get back to class, they're going to have plenty of room on the sidewalks to walk and not have to be on oncoming traffic. So that's pretty much it with that. Any comments, Mr. Weeks, or anything? I know there's a couple speed bumps that we installed in the heights. I do see some that have lifted up, Everett, so you may want to do a once over and double check on some of those. And then also on 3rd Street, I believe, towards the New Mexico side where the water mill is, those are pretty worn out already. We may have to replace those. Any other questions, comments, Sean?
I did get a call today from Mr. Robinson, who I believe is one of the board members or one of the key members of the American Legion, stating that work has been being done in front of their place since March, and that there is a drive available to get into the Legion, but wondering why the intersection could not be opened up or whatever. I told him to go ahead and call today for open forum to discuss. It sounded like he did not, but I just wanted to make, I gave him the opportunity to speak today, but I don't know, maybe we reach out to them to see what's going on because he says that this construction's hurting their business.
So for a couple things, for one, on the Legion's aspect, the way the bar was functioning, they're non-essential, so they're closed down anyways. And second is when they're trying to do, some of the group gatherings, they still have to limit because they're not a restaurant. They're not labeled as any of those essential businesses. They still have to function within limited capacity. And everybody knows that the reason why Popular is taking so long with construction was because of the water line that had to be replaced, which our guys are going to be finalizing or getting another section done for a shutoff tonight, right, Ebert? But in regards to the American Legion, the access should only be and always been through, I think, what is it, Kelwood, Ebert?
It's been Kelwood right now. We changed it to 4th Street right now, and the reason why we changed it because on 3rd Street we're doing the repair, so we have pretty much an open pit, you want to call it. We got new valves, and there's actually potential for danger for them to damage their vehicles, like it happened after the rain. So that's the reason why we actually went ahead and built them a driveway to 4th Street to have access for them and also for the Cactus Rose apartments, so they can get in and out access, and also for emergency vehicles as well. And that was the reason
you guys
why.
know, when we had the rains, it was actually one of the members from the Legion that ended up getting stuck, and that's because they were going down a road and not, abiding by the road signs and the road closure signs. Good thing is that nobody was seriously injured, but it was a really sketchy scenario when we had the rains, and that's just because individuals are not following the road closure signs and they're driving through areas that they shouldn't be. One of the things that we did let everybody know is if anybody's driving there carelessly through our road and they bust one of our lines through carelessness and negligence, they will be responsible for fixing that line and the water loss that is incurred with that. So, our guys made sure that they cleared a path directly to the Cactus Rose apartments and the American Legion. So, unfortunately, that's just something, that we're doing the best that we can to work with, but they should ideally, utilize the road and the access that's given to them. And right now, kind of make the best of it. The sooner we get that road fixed, the better for everybody. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on to parks. Sorry about that. I got a little visitor right here that's trying to cut in on my meeting time. Let's go. Moving on to Parks and Recreation. Ebert?
Actually, we just working on the parks, sir. I'm waiting for. So when can we meet so you can actually let us know where you want those pet stations on the park?
This Friday, I'll be available,
okay.
so I'll meet with you guys. I'll reach out and we'll set up those areas on the Wildcat.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
One of the things that we have been getting is I saw a story in El Paso, individuals still utilizing the playground equipment. Ours are still closed, and just so the public knows, we opened up Corporal Enrique Miramontes Park for individuals that are wanting to be at the picnic tables or just, chill at the park, but they still have to maintain all social distancing requirements. And we've only continued to leave Arroyo Park open for, the individuals with their pets and pretty much functioning as a dog park, but the rest of the parks are closed. So, until this kind of thing clears up and we get a little bit more grasp on it, the playground equipment will remain closed until further notice. Anything else, Ebert?
That's about it in parks, sir.
Moving on to police and fire, Chief Enriquez.
So as you all know, several months ago, like either the beginning of the year or last year, you guys approved a resolution for Operation Stone Garden. Well, unbeknownst to me, the grant writer for Operation Stone Garden was Officer Linda Goggin. So in the grant, she wrote the availability to us to be able to purchase a vehicle. So Operation Stone Garden actually got us a brand new 2020 Ford Explorer fully equipped. The amount of that vehicle was a little over $64,000, and then in addition to it, she also wrote in a fast finger IDs. So it was delivered today. The mayor got to see it, and it's a good addition to the fleet. So with that, mayor went out there. We looked at the fleet. I mean, our fleet is pretty much good to go. The only exception is that we still have to do some changes on a couple of equipment that we have on the vehicles, which are just the cameras. But pretty much our fleet is kind of set, wouldn't you say, Mayor?
Yeah, I went out there and I saw it, and going down from all the broken down, run down vehicles we used to have, everything looks solid now, and I'm pretty sure is going to be able to last us a good while, as long as of course the officers take care of the vehicles. But pretty much it looks good, guys. So thank you, Chief, for the hard work, and like we always say, figuring it out and trying to find another way of getting the necessary needs without having to necessarily impact the budget too much. But definitely thank you, sir.
No problem, sir. And that's about it for PD.
All right, moving on to water and sewer, Mr. Jaques.
As you know, we are doing another closure tonight. Road closure is going to affect from Celeste all the way west, all the way to the end of the town. We passed out the notices, and Norma called some of the places like the water mills, the people that don't have office, notify them. So by 10 o'clock, we're going to be shut down. And the estimated time, for us to turn on the service again will be from 8 to 10 hours. That's an estimated time. Hopefully it takes a bit sooner than that, but that's estimated time. Now we're going to do 5 tight-ins tonight, sir. So we're going to be out there. And, so people know that we're out there.
Long one. I remember the one
yes,
you did 3 was you guys were averaging about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yes, sir.
For tie-in, because there's definitely a lot of work that goes into them, but it's a lot of necessary work. I know a lot of individuals might have an issue with us shutting down the water, but right now, the reason why we're doing it at night is because it negatively impacts the least amount of people. There's not a much pull on the water system at night, and then also, it's not as hot, so individuals that are relying on their air coolers or air conditioners can make do temporarily. It is a minor inconvenience, but it is minor. It is necessary. So we all should do the best that we can to make the best of the situation. It's all for the overall benefit of the entire community. Mr. Weeks or anybody that raised their hand?
Yeah, Ever, can you explain why you're having to do the water shutoff so much right now? Just give a little bit more detail, because I know some people have been asking and they don't understand, like, why again or things like that.
Okay, the reason why, sir, actually our system, it's over 50 years old. It's from the 50s. Our valves, isolation valves, I mean, they don't work anymore. That's the reason why we cannot not isolate the section that we're working on. And for us to minimize, closures, we're trying to do just a couple of them so we can utilize as much time as we can. That this line is actually asbestos. It's what we had back then in the 1950s. So we're trying to repair now with a new and improved material, which is PVC, right? And what we're taking the advantage right now. With the contractor that he's doing all this work, I'm going in there putting new valves, isolation valves, so in the future we can actually just shut down one section instead of shutting the whole town. I mean, those valves, we tried to work them, and actually two of them broke on us because they're so rusted and they're so old, and some of them were covered with asphalt. But it's necessary for us to do this. Like I said, I mean, these lines are, like you saw, Mayor, we're finding out there's actually taps in there that were put in when the line was put in. There's no saddles on them. It can blow up at any time. Right? You saw one of them, right, Mayor? And we needed to fix it, to be quite honest with you.
And you know what? One of the things is that it's been brought up previously. Everybody wondered why the whole town got shut off when those excavators were doing work on the gateway between Wet and Wild and the hotel, was because ideally when the water line went in, Anthony was so big. We didn't have the population we did. We didn't have the housing. So at the time, they were meeting the needs. Now, as engineering goes, you always want to, build up and estimate for the potential growth, right? But back then, they just put a shutoff valve here and there, and they had one large section of system that had high pressure water. And if there was a break, I mean, you shut off 2-3 valves, and that was it for the whole town. But now that we've got so condensed and we've gotten so much, growth within the past few years, now that we're uncovering those old lines, our guys are actually taking a proactive approach and installing the shutoff valves and everywhere where necessary. That way, in the future, if there is a water line break or something major, they can easily isolate those lines and shut off only a small particular section versus having to shut down the entire town. So I really commend the guys for the effort that they're doing. One of the things, I don't know what happened with previous administrations or whatnot, but even when they were uncovering the line on A Street, like Ebert said, there was no wraparounds, there's nothing. We discovered 3 water lines going into the Anthony School District without a meter. Right, Everett?
Right. Actually, it's actually 4, sir.
4. And we
Yes,
ended
sir.
up cutting those lines,
They're
and we
cut
wanted
right
to see if there was going to be any loss of water. Maybe they were old, but we need to get everything metered. Everything needs to be set up. There's been times where we found taps where they're not on there, and moving forward, even for engineering purposes, we need to make sure, which they're doing now, is properly documenting where the shutoff valves or everything. That way we don't have any accidental hits. We get the taps done in before the road gets done. That way it's not having to be torn up later. So there's a lot of proactive work that they're doing, for the future growth of the town. And like we said, it may be a momentary headache, but it's so we don't have to cause any major headaches in the future. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hawkins, did we get the test results yet for the lab for the new well site?
No, sir. As a matter of fact, I was just going to tell you, I spoke with Mark today. They video it. Some of the videos, they show a little issue on it, but we're just going to find out what comes up from the lab, from the new well. And I had a you can see conversation over the phone with Mark. And also we're updating our maps for the new lines that we're replacing the valves. We're on it. But as far as the wells, we're still waiting on the results, sir.
Okay, sounds good. Moving on to court. Mr. Hawkins is not here. Ms. Norma, do you have any tallies or totals for me for the month?
Yes, sir. So I have the recap on the courts for July. There was court on July the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd. Next month's courts are going to be August the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th. And we also have the courts for September. September will be the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th. I don't have no totals. That report will be in next council meeting, sir.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to finance. As you guys know, we're still working and knocking out that audit report. Benny and these guys are doing a great job. They're almost there. They're also working on 18 and 19 at the same time. That way we'll be able to have both reports done. But other than that, that's pretty much it for finance. Mr. Weeks, anything else that you'd like to suggest or go over at this moment in time?
No, I guess I will say something. As Mr. Chavez, and I've had some family issues that I've been dealing with. And so I never say never, never say always, but my heart's been really hard to be in the counseling lately with things going on. So I would advise everyone to be a little bit more active with the budget in case I'm not here next year. Not that I'm the know-all of everything with the budget, but I would just say, for instance, I'll also tell you guys that I'm going to be gone September 23rd through the 28th, which is when you guys are usually trying to wrap up budget. So just, 2 months notice to everyone to be aware, but it's been a hard year. And so I think maybe we should all kind of get to know some ins and outs of the budget. So thanks.
Thank you for all your time and dedication, Mr. Weeks. We definitely hope to look and continue to look forward to having you part of the council. I think you're a great asset. But, let us know if you need anything. Reach out to me personally. We're here for you. And thank you for all your do. Moving on to administration, pretty much just a couple things that we're handling administratively. We did roll out the new PTO policy. We had meetings with all the staff at that point in time. Nothing really major other than that, and basically just trying to get this water and all this stuff done, get the roads worked on, and finalize the budget and work on that for next year. So probably by next meeting, I'm hoping and gearing to set up a goal to at least have a mock budget proposal for you guys. That way you can look over and then start setting up our budget workshops. Any other questions, any comments?
I think David had a question, sir. He has his hand raised.
Yes, sir, David. No? Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't.
All righty. Thank you. The next regular council meeting is scheduled at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, August 10th, 2020. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sorry, I cut out. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Can a department head make the motion?
Nobody wants to leave?
Nobody wants to leave?
I'll go ahead and make the motion to leave.
Second.
All right. Motion made by Mr. Garcia, seconded by Councilman Weeks. Motion to adjourn at 7:48. Thank you, guys. David, everybody, have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.